Jericho 98 is designed to take away the United States' ability to define our struggle for us, but by denying our political prisoners exist inside the prisons and jails of the United States. With the show of force in numbers here today, we're saying to the government of the United States, we will no longer be silent while you hold our political prisoners within your prisons. Some of them have been in your prisons for over 30 years, while we have allowed you to take away your denial of their existence, to get away with your denial of their existence, and your criminalization of our struggle, and the murder of political prisoners like Ahmed Evans, Bobby Garcia, George Jackson, and Merle Austin Africa. We're serving notice that the silence ends today. 30 years is 29 years and 364 days too long. But by our presence here today, we're saying to the government of the United States, we are well aware that you've gotten away with it this long, because we didn't hold up our end of the struggle. But we are making a new commitment to our political prisoners and to the struggle. We are making a new commitment to support our political prisoners and prisoners of war. We had to put aside our differences and come together, as Malcolm said, on the basis of what we had in common. What we have in common is a common enemy in a common struggle. The common enemy being the racist, sexist, colonialist, imperialist, capitalist system of the United States of America. A system that promotes and supports police brutality and murder of people of color and of other oppressed people. A system that promotes property value over human lives and dignity. A system that promotes the dollar profit over the rights of the people to decent housing, education, and employment. A system that utilizes racism as a tool to keep us divided and fighting amongst ourselves, and as a means of justifying the continued inhuman acts perpetrated against people of African descent in this country. A system that invades third world underprivileged countries and colonizes them, utilizing their young for cannon fodder in their wars of aggression, and their land as dumping grounds for their waste. Our common struggle is against the enemy that perpetuates these evils. Our common struggle is against the enemy that utilizes a propaganda war to criminalize our struggles, to demonize us, to make the world believe that our struggles are not just struggles, and the captured combatants, the freedom fighters, the captured comrades are not political prisoners, but criminals. These are our freedom fighters, and it's up to us to take care of them. We talk about recognition as political prisoners and prisoners of war. The United States of America continues to deny the existence of these political prisoners and prisoners of war. We have to continue this struggle for recognition into the international arena, as Geronimo has said. We have to continue to raise the issue. We have to put together an organized force whose work for the next year will be to work in the various international arenas, pushing the fact that political prisoners exist in this country. We have to make it so that every time the United States government raises the issue of human rights violations and the treatment of dissenters anywhere in the world and calls for the release of political prisoners, they are met by the question, what about the political prisoners in your jails, America? Jericho, over the next year and longer, will address the issues of, one, recognition for our political prisoners and prisoners of war. We want you to go back to your communities and either join with the work of your local Jericho organizing committee, and if one does not exist, create one to educate people in your area about political prisoners. Two, visit, send commissary to, and otherwise support political prisoners. We want you to either adopt a political prisoner or support other efforts to give material aid to our political prisoners in the form of visits, either assisting the families to visits or making sure that their basic needs are met. Three, amnesty for political prisoners. We need to continue to press the amnesty question in all the different arenas. Jericho has to continue to push this issue. Over the next year, the Jericho organizing committees and the organizations who have endorsed the work of Jericho must be prepared to follow through. The attorneys that have been assigned to do this work in conjunction with the organizing committees have to perfect the strategy and move it forward. Right. Four, the National Legal Defense Fund. No matter how we approach it, Without the financial component, without this financial component, we will not do justice to the issue of support for our political prisoners. Oftentimes, the delay in making legal assistance available means the difference in life and death for our political prisoners. We also need to organize and politicize students coming out of law schools to take up this issue. Building a cadre of lawyers we can trust and depend on to advocate on behalf of our political prisoners. We have served notice on the seat of government of the United States today that we will no longer allow the silence around the issue of political prisoners to continue. Now we have to go back and show by our actions that we are prepared to do just what it takes to make the dismantling of the walls of Jericho a reality.